Welcome back to another episode of the Hobby Chop Podcast, the podcast for the people. If you have questions you want answered or ideas for episode topics, check out the Hobby Chop Podcast Facebook group. Message any of us on IG. Ask your question. You never know. Your idea may be our next episode. Welcome. How is everyone doing? So today's episode, you got me, Big Ken, and we've got Tyler back in the house, and we got Zip. Fellas, how you doing?
I'm good. Recovered from my broken tooth and my week of work travel, and ready to rock and roll.
We didn't tell anybody about the broken tooth. We just said you were traveling.
Yeah, got in a fist fight at the hotel bar for work.
Yeah, that water glass, had a mean right hand.
Yeah, but I'm sure the water glass looked worse than you, right?
Yeah, it survived. I didn't.
So we're back. The trio's back. We're all together. Today's episode, we do have our guest spotlight today. We're going to bring in one of the listeners to ask their question. Then we're going to do listener questions later, but we're going to kick off this episode with today's main topic: how to sell rare cards with either low pop counts or very old sales. Who wants to start us off?
I think Tyler should, because you kind of brought this up, right?
Yeah, I think it's just an interesting topic in general, because I think it's something that everybody encounters, right? You have situations where you get a really cool card, it's a great card, but it hasn't sold in 18 months, or a variant of it has sold recently. And how do you use that as a way to comp and value your card? Or it's a brand new card with a really low pop count because it's hard to hit. And all you have is like a few raw sales or other players who have sold in, say, a PSA 10 or something like that. And just, how do you value that? And I think this is where in the hobby, in my opinion, it becomes a little more art than science, right? Because you have to be creative and be able to craft that story if you're trying to sell it to a potential buyer. And that's where, your research and what you put into it is what you get out of it becomes really, really important. In my opinion. But my question back is, how do you all handle, Jordan, Ken, how do you all handle that situation? Because, my idea is I try to build that story and, really think about other variants, other versions, and, think about how I'm going to present that when somebody wants to buy it.
First, I think it's just funny the resident data guy is talking about it being art and not science. Let's just stop there for that.
I know.
Whoa, that's a moment. So let's sit with that for a second. But yeah, no, I definitely understand. And when you're selling a card, I think maybe that's the best way to do. But as a buyer, I'd want to make it as much science as I could, right? Like a real simple way is this popped up as a Prism Finite popped into my messages for me to potentially buy, and the seller has no idea how to value it. I don't know how to value it because it hasn't sold. So what do? There's comparable players Prism Finite, the Black 101 Prism Finite sold, and both of these players golds have sold too. So in that way, you could try to get a multiplier off of a highly desired card that sells. And then like if X's Black Finite 1 of 1 sold for a certain amount and that player's gold sells for 3 times higher than the other player that we're looking for, then you can come to that in terms of like more of a data setting. But when you're selling the card, I think, you want the most for your money. So you want the most money. You're going to go, oh, well, a 1 of 1 is different, which is true. But like, I think it kind of just depends on the perspective of how you get there.
Yeah, I think it depends on what side of the table you're on too. right? I think if you're on your side of the table and you're the seller and you've done your homework and you come up with a price, a buyer coming in, and especially on a low pop, a card that hasn't sold in a long time, is going to look at different comps than what you've looked at, because obviously we're the seller, right? So we want to look at what's going to favor us on our side, what's going to give us the most value for our card. But then we're going to have to square off against people who are coming in who are potential buyers to say, well, you compared it to Justin Jefferson, right? I may, compare him to T. Higgins instead, right? So there's so many different and I know I've done a few episodes on this where I used to say, well, you really make the price, because at the end of the day, if you don't get your price, you're not selling the card, right? It's not like you have to sell that card today and move that card. If you don't get and I'm sure there's somebody out there that wants that card probably for what you're selling it for, but I think that turns into we can find the price, but are we going to be able to find a buyer that's willing to pay that price?
Exactly. I think that's where, this becomes the question on what's the medium in which you move the card. And, this is where Ken, you and I differ a little bit from Jordan. Jordan sells almost exclusively, online in some sort via auctions or other methods. And we sell a fair amount at shows as well, but also do some online selling. So it's a matter of, at what point do you just pull the trigger and, send something to auction versus, continue to try to have to tell that story in person to another human being sitting across, the aisle, basically, because that's really what it comes down to. And, while I've had a lot of, unique and rare cards uh, over time, that there's always typically a way to craft the story. This really just came to my brain because two recent cards that I have. And Ken, I think for people watching, I'll share my screen and just show the juxtaposition of that SGA auto.
Okay.
Just because I think it's, if you're watching, it's really interesting. So the card that I had is this Shai Gilgeous-Alexander Contenders Draft Picks auto out of 99. And here's a bigger picture of the card, and it's a pop 13, and the last card sold for $225 in May of 2024. So I had to come up with a price on this card, and what essentially the base variation of this card has been selling for around $500. And how the heck do you value that card if you don't send it to auction? Because the base is a pop 130 and has recent sales. And I can toggle screens here and show that, but it's the and everybody can see this here. This is the base variant, which actually just picked up a comp since I sold the card, actually, for $416 in a PSA 10 for the base. But you can see a BGS 9.5 did same card, just did $480 not too long ago as well. And I stickered the card for $800, put it in a Discord chat for $800 for a few weeks. Finally did sell the card for I believe $600 or $650 or whatever it was on Sunday. But when I asked myself that question is, should I have sent it to auction? Could I got $1,000 for this card at auction? And it just becomes, that question of when you pull that trigger, when you go that route. For me, I was into the card very well, so I decided it was enough profit to sell it in person. If I'd have been into the card, deeper, I probably for sure would have went to auction. So that's what made the difference for me. But I just think it's an interesting question. Mm-hmm. And the other card that I happen to have is a Jackson Holiday PSA 10 Cosmic Chrome Saturn. That's like 1 in 12,000 packs. There's a one raw sale at $500. It's a pop count 6 or 8, something like that. But the Ellie De La Cruz version just did 3,200. And I've had this card posted for $1,250 forever, and it won't move. So at this point, it's probably I'm in this card a little deeper, so I'll probably go to auction with it. That's where I'm leaning at this point. If it doesn't move this weekend at Quincy, probably. So just a good general conversation, and anybody listening, shout out in the comments. Tell us how you would handle that, right? Because I think it's something that everybody can learn from, or I'd love to hear how other people do it to try to get better at it.
I also think a situation like this is another time where community comes into play, where you have people you can bounce questions off of, because I know between us three, we've just shot pics of cards to each other, and we've had totally different ideas of what a card values at, but it's good to get that feedback from someone, somewhat objective, of just like not saying if we're selling or buying it. It's just like, hey, what do you think this is worth? Just to get that feedback is really important, I think. So having that is good. And honestly, I think it's pretty safe to say I'm in a similar position, and I'm taking a little bit of a different route, slightly different type of card. I have a card that has only sold as redemptions, and I have a PSA 10 copy of the actual card. So how do you even go about finding out what, the card is worth versus the redemption, and then what that card is worth in a PSA 10 versus just a redemption sale, right? Mm-hmm. So
that's definitely a card you would send to auction.
Yeah,
right?
like that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Like, you have no chance to get a number, or if you did get a number in person with that Caitlin Clark card, you're gonna just, you're
just gonna wonder if that was good or not, right? Like, yeah,
exactly.
So because I've asked a ton of people, just like what they thought of values of it, people who are like deep into the Caitlin Clark or WNBA space, and then just people who are deep into cards and understand the markets, and I've had a wide variance of values, which makes me think all I need is two people for to think this card is worth a big number for it to get a big number, right? Like ultimately, and that's the route I'm gonna go. And also it takes the for example, selling off a card for 600 if it could have done 1,000 versus selling a card for $5,000 if it could have done above 15 grand is a big difference. So like,
absolutely.
You absolutely have nothing to worry about sending that card out to auction.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried.
These are rookie cards, right? And I just want to point out, somebody said we talk more about WNBA on this podcast than anywhere else, and I didn't bring it up. You did. So now I'm just going to talk about it for a minute. But these are her rookie cards for Caitlin Clark, right? Yeah. You get this massive card that's a dual auto with Kate Martin. That's a PSA 10. And there's the collectors out there are just going to keep bidding on that thing until it hits zero. The clock hits zero, right? There is no way you're not going to do well on that card.
Ken, I appreciate you for pumping my Caitlin Clark card. Not the reason I brought it up. The reason I brought it up
for sale. It's not even up for sale yet. Can't even pump it yet.
It's up Thursday night. Let's pump it then. No, but the reason I brought it up is because as Tyler just talked about that process of do I auction or do I not? That's the reason I did. Is because I have no idea. You guys are way more patient than I am with just sitting there having guys beat you down.
You hold these cards for like 38 seconds.
You're missing what I'm saying. We talk about me selling online. You guys going to card shows. I sat there with Tyler and had this dude nickel and diamond. We're talking $5 to $10 on a card that's a pop 9, never sells. I would have just been like, please don't come back. This is the number of the card. What are we talking about? 10 minutes later, it sold at his asking price, which was super reasonable. And then the guy came back like, oh, where'd it go? It's like, I don't know. Maybe it went for the reasonable number that you couldn't pull out a $10 bill for. I can't deal with that. I have a 1-year-old that screams in the middle of the night. Think I want to listen to a 30-year-old man scream in the middle of the day? No, I don't. And this is why I send my cards to auction.
I had someone say to me at the show, at the Danbury show last weekend, you know, we were settling on a price, and I said, I'm at 8, and he said, I'm not there yet. And I said, well, I am there. So when you get there, just let me know, because that's what we're selling at, you know. But
also, go ahead, Ken. I'm sorry. No,
I just wanted to circle back. I just wanted to make a couple points on the original topic here. One, buying those cards that we were just talking about makes us better buyers, right? So after you buy a few of those cards, and they're usually really cool cards, and you buy them, and some of them you do well, and some of them you don't do well at all, right? But you start to get a better idea, and you start to become a better buyer of those cards.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, one of the questions I want to pose out of that, and it doesn't have to do with low pop, but it's more, a lot of what we do is we compare sales, right? We have a card, and we want to, because there is no comps, we want to compare to other cards. Situation I am in with a card, I have an RPA that's an 8.5 that has recent sales, recent comps, but a raw goes for $100 less. But a lot of people say it's an 8.5, it's the same as a raw. So they want to offer the raw price and not the actual comp of the actual graded sale of that card. Am I foolish to think I'm going to sell that card at what recent I bought that card based on recent comps on you know, two solid comps. I bought that card, but the raw card. So should I have looked when I was buying that card, because it was an 8.5? Should I have looked at the raw sale and gone to that sale when I was buying the card?
I don't necessarily think you should have looked at that, but if you saw that, I would have at least been aware of, okay, people are going to try to say this when I go to sell this, right? Like, because ultimately you have 1-to-1 data, you're saying, right?
Yep.
8.5 to 8.5. Yeah. So it's just like, people who are trying to pick up the card obviously want the best deal. We all want the best deal, right? Like, of course. So I think that's just something you got to deal with. That's why I sent it to auction.
Yeah. I think, Ken, to your topic there, that's you do have to, and I actually hate that that's the way you have to think about it, that you can't just say it's 1-to-1, this is the direct, and we work off of this real comp. But you almost have to bake a little bit of that in when you're buying to really enhance and become the best buyer possible. I mean, for example, on my way home from work today, I bought a Jalen Hurts rookie ticket, and it's a raw copy, and it has a BGS 9 comp that just did a really nice number, but the PSA 9 comp that sold before the Super Bowl did less than the BGS 9 comp. And so I used that as part of, while I said I know that the BGS 9 just did this, but there is some volatility, that risk that I'll have to take in here. And so I'm going to value it a little bit different to the person I was buying it from. And we were able to come to it, and I ended up buying the card. But I actually, if you look at what he originally asked based off the BGS 9 comp, you would think I bought it at a really low percentage. But I did move the value in the negotiation just because I'm anticipating somebody doing a similar thing to me. And then I think, Jordan, your card leads us to an offshoot question on this topic. It's an absolute card you have to take to auction. Taking to auction is the right thing.
It's too unique in so many ways, yeah.
But the question then becomes, and I know you do a lot of stuff through PC Sports, so it's always eBay, but when do you not use eBay versus when do I use Alt? When do I use Fanatics? When do I use Golden, right? That becomes a real thing in certain cards, just from the marketing perspective. Like there's certain cards that I would only send to Fanatics. There are certain cards that I would probably only send to Golden if it was a certain card and had a really big potential. And when I say certain cards, what I mean is vintage. If I've got a really, I'll make it up. If I got a really nice 1954 Bowman Mickey Mantle that is a lower grade but is really centered and has really nice eye appeal, I'm going to go to Fanatics with the intent to try to get the eye appeal sticker put on my auction, so that, because when people see that, they're going to ignore whatever comp a PSA 3 has done in the past. It's about to set a new comp because Fanatics has said this is a great copy of this card regardless of the grade, and the grade doesn't matter. And that's why with those specific cards, I'm going to go to Fanatics. I'm going to try to get that eye appeal sticker. A really big card, make it up. If I had that Paul Skeens debut 1/1 patch, now it did 1.1 million on Fanatics, but I'm probably almost going to go always to Ken Golden in that card, just because I want his marketing power behind that card. Right? That's the advantage that you're paying for, or we're not really paying for it. The buyer pays the premium there, which is another somewhat advantage to going those routes versus you're not giving up the commission. So I think those are just interesting things that when you do get one of these really massive, really big cards, that is important to think about. Just don't always pull the trigger to the first option sometimes. Just a general statement. Make sure you're evaluating all of your options. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I just go to look at the I just put in on if you want to do this, you can, Tyler. I just put in Caitlin Clark on Card Ladder, and then I just went to the highest sales.
Yeah.
And the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 are on either Golden or Fanatics Premier, mainly being Golden. And then it's eBay at Quick Consign, who I've used in the past too, for $30K for a gold Prism Auto raw. So I hear you. Yeah, definitely clear.
I guess too, you have to weigh, right, the percentage you're getting for the card versus the percentage you have to pay for the auction. Right.
That's true too. And then I also got to wait a month for my money from any of the auction houses.
Potentially, but if I've got a 1/1 superfractor, it's only going to one place. Right, your card's a little different. It's a card with a top end of, hopefully it brings 20K for you. That's what I'm rooting for. But that's probably the top end of that card, right? If I've got a card that might get to 6 figures, it's only going to 1 or 2 places.
Fair enough. Absolutely. Right. If it was for sure. If it was a different situation, I would definitely be talking a little bit more,
But it's interesting, even for smaller cards. I know a few guys in the hobby that I've met in the past year that do local shows with us, Ken, and they refuse to use eBay. And one of them only uses Golden. And it could be a $1,800 card, and he gets way more success going that route for him. And because again, the buyer's paying the premium there, and you're not giving up the.
Yeah. I know a lot of people used to use PWCC before they switched over.
Yeah. So
I've used a few. I've used PWCC, and then I've used the consigners on eBay. I haven't used Golden, and it's not for any reason that I haven't. But
you could have been on next season.
Could have been on next season.
Dropping the Hobby Chop podcast on Netflix.
I missed out. Yeah.
All of it leads to an interesting topic, right? I think the real answer at the end of the day is when you're dealing with a rare card or a hard to comp card, you really just need to step back and not get caught up in the quick flip of it. You really got to think through what's your best option and try to make that best choice. And really, Jordan, you hit on earlier, the most important thing is having people that you can bounce those ideas off of. That's super important.
It is. And one more thing I want to say, and obviously we're not sponsored by PC Sports Cards or anything, but
we're not. You would have thought we were.
I know. But the way their just system has changed how I do everything and how it's changed my entire everything is, I almost felt and it's because of how good they do business on their end. I felt like I just should do it. Like, because it's the type of card where it's like, regardless of where it goes, it's probably going to sell about the same as it would. Like, people are going to find it, whether it's on Fanatics, Golden, or eBay, and it's also not to that, like, super fractor, gold vinyl, whatever you want. It's not to that tier. So I was like, it just feels like the right thing to do. Also, I'm going to get 95% of the comp, which I'm happy with. Like, that's another thing is, like, if you were going to sell a card of that magnitude at 95%, like, would you be okay with that?
Well, and that's why it's important. Like, same thing for me, on a much smaller scale with that Shea card, is it matters your investment into the card, right? Right. You didn't go out and pay a big number for this particular card where you need every little inch on the other side. You're willing to be okay with it. I bought that Shea card and actually, kind of a moment of ignorance, I didn't even look at the base variant comps and was able to buy it off of the really old
the low comp.
So I ended up in the card way better than I should have. And so it made sense for me to just move it.
Yeah, fair enough. All
right, well, we're going to end the conversation here, but you guys can keep it going. Leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on the podcast version, go to Facebook, Hobby Chop Podcast Facebook group. Leave some comments there. We're going to jump over to our listener spotlight now. So let's welcome in Jonathan at Homer Sports Cards. I guess it's kind of a Homer pick, right? Homer Sports Cards. Bringing you on next. And I'm going to ask you just to give, that little elevator pitch, who you are, you're laying in the hobby, but you're just going to slide to the side for a minute and just tell people what this is. Because I was almost with you when you acquired this last weekend.
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys. Hi, everybody. This is one of my only 2 purchases this weekend at the County Center. It's a signed original poster from the first season of The Sopranos. James Gandolfini in large print on his arm. So I thought that was pretty cool.
What a great piece to acquire.
Yeah. I brought it home and I realized it is very large. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it, but we'll find a home for it in the house.
What, your wife doesn't want it right in the living room?
Yeah, no, veto.
So go ahead, tell us who you are.
So my name's Jonathan, Homer Sports Cards. I've been collecting since 1983. I started collecting baseball cards and expanded basketball, football, everything. Got into the hobby selling side of things in 2019 on eBay. Yesterday just celebrated my 900th sale on eBay, which was a milestone for us. And I'm on Instagram, but my favorite part of the hobby is live shows. And, that's kind of where the question is leading to. But that's my favorite part, is walking the aisles and picking up some PC cards and, potential cards to flip, but really that's where it lives and dies for me. So,
yeah. And if you walk any shows in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, anywhere around here, and at the National, right, you'll see my man Jonathan out there. Always see. I'm set up at all these shows, and you just set up, right, for you. We were together. You were right next to me. It was almost a year ago, right? It was last spring.
Yep.
You set up at your very first show, and we did an episode about that.
That's right. Yep. I decided to hop the aisle and see what it was like on the other side. It was great. It was great for 2 days, and I think I'm going to do it again in September with George and the guys at the Northeast Expo. So I'm excited to do it a second time with my son. And it's everybody hobbies the way they like to. And I was listening backstage, and it was interesting for me because my lane is eBay, and I've always thought, well, do I have a golden card, or do I have alt, or where things fit in what buckets? And I go straight to eBay, and that's why I built up the sales. Personally, it's a hobby. It's not my job, but that's where I know, and that's where I feel comfortable. So anyway,
good. All right. So you have a question.
Yeah, so you guys are all regional to me at the Westchester County Center. It used to be the JPRS shows, and now it's Lucky. And those are my local shows. And I was wondering, where do you feel they sit in the national landscape of regional shows? Do you think they're on par with the other shows? And then sort of the second question to that is, what are the top 5 most well-attended regional shows? I mean, I know the names, but there's always foam on social media, which ones have all the, the interest going on. But which one of the 5 outside of the National Fanatics Fest would you say are the most are the top attended, and where do you think our local show sits in there?
So I did a lot of homework for this today. I got this question because I have an idea. I could probably ramble off 5 or 8 shows and say I know they're the largest shows, and I've only been to a couple of them. But the Westchester show, which used to be called the East Coast National, used to have a lot more tables and it used to draw more people in.
2 floors as well.
2 floors, yeah. So 2 things really draw people in to shows. One is vendor tables, right? The more tables, the more people want to come in to buy. And 2, it's autograph guests, right? Which is a big draw for, could be people coming through the door that are not even going to buy a card, but they'll come to see an athlete and get something signed. So I'm gonna throw the kind of like a little trivia question why we're doing this to Tyler and Zip. Who do you guys think are the largest shows? And I don't know if you're both. I see you both gazing off. I don't know if you're looking up the information now, but table size. Who do you know who the top shows are? Table size.
We're saying regionally or throughout the country?
Throughout the country.
Okay, so you want to alternate, Tyler?
Sure, I'll take the non one. You're going to say one, but I'll say the other one. What is now the West Coast Card Show, or affectionately known as Burbank.
Perfect. Yeah. Dallas.
Yeah. So who do you think has more tables between the 2 of those?
Dallas.
West Coast.
No. So Dallas is 750 tables.
Dallas has a bunch of offshoot rooms.
It does. Okay. I think I would be surprised if the West Coast doesn't actually get there in the fall.
So that's part of this trivia here is, yes, there are 650 tables with room to expand.
Yeah. Right.
So they will expand. One other show with 750 tables. You know which one it is?
I want to guess Nashville, but I know it's very close to that.
Yep. No, it's Nashville.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we've got we drop down, you have Midwest Monster, 400 tables, Chicago Sports Spectacular, 300 plus tables, Chantilly and Philly, both are 300 plus tables. And if we look at, because near and dear to my heart, I went to the Toronto Expo. I love that show. 500 plus tables at that show, and that's the Canadian national, right? Yeah. Versus our national. So yeah, I mean there are some massive shows out there, and I think comparably, like I would have to say, we are so lucky in the Northeast up here. Right, we have Card Vault that provides, not only we go to the Causeway, which is a smaller show, but they do Fenway Park, they do Gillette Stadium, right? We have the casinos, right? We've got Scott EC3 at Mohegan Sun. We've got the JPRS. We have these shows in, the Hofstra show on Long Island and the Westchester show. But they're just not as big as some of these other regional shows that are much bigger.
Yeah. To kind of answer the question, the way I would think about Westchester is, so I jumped back in the hobby last year. It was the first big show what I would qualify as big show that I went to. And I was impressed at the time. But as I went to bigger shows and got more exposed to bigger shows, to be honest with you, I did not attend this past weekend, and it's a 35-minute drive from my house.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, how it's fallen for me, when I think about, some of the big shows. Ken, we were just talking about West Coast as a potential spot. We had a really good time in Atlanta. I know they advertised around 300 tables. I don't think they got there. I have the Philly card show is nice. I've been there a couple times. I had not got to Chantilly, but that's on my list. I know you mentioned the Midwest Monster, but actually, which is in Indianapolis, but the card show that is probably going to surpass that for them and probably start to challenge Nashville eventually for the Midwest is going to be Shipshewana.
Yeah.
It's got Ryan from Card Collector 2 behind it now as part of putting it on, and they just expanded to a new space where this here a few weeks ago they used 50,000 square feet. I know they did 300 plus tables there, and they dedicated a 10,000 square feet to just trade night alone, which was really cool. And they have another 50,000 feet in the square feet in the venue that they can go to. So that's probably one of the.
Isn't that show in the middle of nowhere?
It is literally. You will see horse and buggy.
Like,
Jonathan probably
people,
has a good idea.
Said they wanted to go to dinner, and it was like a 30-minute drive to go get something to eat.
Yep, it's up near but while it's in the middle of nowhere, the location is somewhat strategic in the fact that you have northern Indiana. There's decent. It's not a bad drive from Indianapolis. It's not a bad drive from Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Detroit, really anything in southern Michigan. So you've got a large geographical area that is all within a few hours drive of the show that doesn't require a lot of people to fly in for it. So it has that unique ability to draw.
Is there an airport there?
No. I mean, you'd have to fly to You could fly to Indianapolis, South. I mean, you go to smaller ones like South Bend and get over there. But
how far from the closest airport would it be?
90 minutes, 2 hours from Indy.
Yeah. See, I think that would really affect the people from flying in.
Right.
Like one of the things all these shows have: Dallas, Nashville, Burbank, Midwest, Chicago, Chantilly, Philly. They all have a major airport, even Culture Collision that we went to within 15 or 20 minutes of the venue.
Oh, for sure. I think that's a big key when we're talking about this. Dallas, right? It's an hour from DFW, I believe.
Yeah.
But being able to stay on site with the convention center is very important. That is one thing like the Shipshewana show has to its advantage is the hotel is attached. I think where it has a little different flavor than everything else is there's no competition. There's nothing to compete against it show wise, and you have a lot of major metro areas in the Midwest that are drivable.
I was gonna say, no kidding. There's no other successful card shows out there. No way. out in the Amish area, there's no other card shows just popping up.
Right.
Oh man.
So
I'd like to make an analogy about the Westchester show. But it will require you to have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Rick Dalton, who is Leonardo DiCaprio, I feel like they are in their spaghetti western version of the movie. They were once the biggest and brightest being the East Coast National, and now they're in the spaghetti western part of their
and they've changed hands too. Now Lucky's card shows or whatever owns it. And Jonathan, before you go, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Now you've attended this show for many years, and I know a couple people I know who live in New York who's attended this show for a few years. Kind of all had the same consensus of this show, and I was just I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't. Just what you thought about the show since you've been attending this show all along, just what your thoughts were on this show.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like sour grapes because it is a large show. There's a large selection of dealers that come in and they sell modern and vintage. So it is a good show to live nearby to. But to have it as large and with as much power behind it, I don't think it really hits as these other regional shows seem to. I'm going to a show this weekend that is probably similar in size, maybe a little smaller, the Northeast Expo in Quincy, that they use every nook and cranny of that hotel, and it's just a better show. I hate to say it because it's not my local show, but it didn't appreciate the early bird price raise this weekend by $10 when dealers weren't set up. So, I think they can improve in a lot of ways, and but I guess that's why we're headed to the National and headed to Quincy this weekend.
Well, hopefully they don't get to the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because that'd be terrible. Yeah.
Before you go, Jonathan, I will ask an interesting question. So the Edison, New Jersey show that's now changed hands to the guys that run Dallas are now putting that show on. Do you think what kind of impact do you think that plus Fanatics Fest has long term on the Lucky show at Westchester?
There's an opening, there's an opportunity, and I think that's what the Expo saw in Chelsea Piers, but maybe it's a little north of the area where it really hits. New Jersey has a lot of little shows, small shows, really good local shows for what they are. So as long as they can kind of feed off of that, because there's a lot of people that are interested in the hobby in New Jersey, shows every weekend, and they're well attended. So if they can sort of level up, scale, it could be successful in this area. I don't know. Yeah, that's I think that was the reason why I asked. It wasn't a leading question, but the show has seen its better days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Changing of the guard.
Well,
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. Number 2 in the listener spotlight, and hopefully we'll get you back on for another episode.
And number 1 in the hearts of all the listeners.
I appreciate listening the last few weeks. So you guys are doing a good job. Keep it up. Thanks for
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, Zip. We're moving on to the other listener questions.
All righty. Let's hop in. We got a bunch. From our man Greg. I'm looking to pick up a couple of downtowns at a card show next weekend. What are the chances that I'll find a clean one to grade?
Slim to none. First of all, those cards are very hard to grade to begin with.
They are hard to grade. I think there's a better chance that you're going to find a downtown that is gradable than you are a random other rookie card that is nice, that is numbered or something like that, because those are absolutely going to grading by the person who originally has the card. The downtown market is so fluid and has so much opportunity to immediately sell, where the grade doesn't drastically change the card a ton for certain ones, that you will actually just find many people who pull the downtown and immediately put it for sale. I buy, as you all know, I buy a ton of these, and I honestly, I can't tell you the last time I sent one off to grading, just because it just doesn't make a lot of sense most of the time, unless it's a gold kaboom or something that just absolutely would need to be graded. But
one that you should hold on to regardless of where the price goes, right?
Yeah. Don't remind me. Don't remind me of that one. It's sitting over there. I don't even want to look at it.
Yeah, they're tough to grade. I'd say, maybe I'm crazy. I would just say if you want to specifically buy downtowns to grade, wait for Optic. Just the chromium you may have a better shot at, because the whole foil aspect of the Donruss downtown just makes it tough to grade. And I've graded a few cards, and the downtowns are really tough. I was gonna say, I can tell you, if you touch the downtown anywhere on the front, you leave a fingerprint. Absolutely.
And a lot of people I know, which blows my mind, they say, "What do you mean you prep the card?" I pull it out, I put it in a thing, and I send it to PSA. And I started getting the idea when I show up at these shows and I'll see a downtown that's a PSA 9 or even a PSA 8. Let me see that card, because sometimes I can angle it and see if I can see a fingerprint on it. And I sent one for grading that came back. That I sent it out. It had no fingerprint. It came back with a fingerprint on it. So whoever took it out at the PSA side touched it with their finger, right?
It's probably a postal worker in the Midwest, most likely.
Jesus.
What, the big scam? You guys don't know what I'm talking about? This dude went to prison. He had like over $100,000 in just cards he was snatching from like a local card shop, and then he brought it back to the card shop to try to sell to them.
Yeah.
Classic.
One guy. We can't diss the postal market over one guy.
Or the Midwest. I guess you're right. I guess you're right.
I take offense to the Midwest dissing.
You know, sorry, Tyler. Another thing too, one last thing on that is this year's downtowns. There's a common flaw in them is that I've seen a few times is the bottom edge has a little, is that what you're doing with your finger, Tyler? Yeah. Has a little like, what is it, like a crimp or like an edge flip or peeling or what?
Yeah, it's almost like when they cut it or whatever, the dead center bottom edge, the foil just peels up.
Yeah.
And there's some that are light and there are some that are really bad. And I've tried on a couple of them that I got to really press out. Now, I could not press them out. So it's really interesting. And I will say, if you're going to go buy that, if you're looking at 2024 downtowns, make sure you look at mini comps. Don't look at just the last one, because they are
all over the place.
Wildly different 5 sales apart.
Yep. Good point. How do we feel about our downtown question? Good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right.
with it.
On to the next from Kyle Kusik. How many cards do each of you have in your PC? I'll go first. I have 2. I have 2 cards in my PC. They're both Ted Williams cards in my PC, along with a Ted Williams signed baseball and a Ted Williams autograph little statue, and his nameplate is that. So and I have that PC because I played baseball through college, and my great grandfather, huge Ted Williams, huge Red Sox fan, and that's where that stems from. So my PC is very small. I am, as I've been called before, a hype beast PSA flipper, and I will probably get that tattooed eventually. So that's that.
You have 2, and I have too many. Because I cannot help myself. I wouldn't even know a count to tell you. A lot, an awful lot, and they're all like.
If FanDuel
I have
an over under again.
I have PC cards. I forget I have that. I was collecting this person, and then all of a sudden I come across and I'm like, oh yeah, I have a whole collection of them, or I've PC'd that person, and then I realize I've got hundreds of their cards. So
Ken, what would the odds be on your FanDuel Sportsbook if the over under for PC cards was 499.5?
Oh, it would be way over. I bet you I'm in the thousands.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, easy. I think I probably have. I bet you I'd be over on the Trinity Rodman cards.
You have over 500 Trinity Rodman cards?
I bet you I do.
You have every Trinity Rodman card.
But then I have multiples on top of that.
Hey.
Yeah.
He's on his way to joining Joe Milton and Jared Wiley are about to catch Trinity Rodman, though.
Yeah. And don't forget, not Triple H, Double H.
Oh yeah, hidden hookers right there.
Right.
Yeah, I was doing some work in the office today, and I came across the team badges from the Don Russ soccer, the women's national soccer team, whatever it was, and I realized I was doing the whole set of badges, and I'm about 9 or 10 short, and I had my list and I forgot about them. Now I can start that again. I can go back to my eBay and try to complete that. So I have a bunch of sets of things that just odd things like the out of this 2021 Don Russ, out of this world. I have the whole set,
Oh, and then you have the Hunger Games ones.
I have the Hunger Games.
That's cool. That's very cool to me.
Yeah.
I think that's very unique. Yeah.
So my poor family.
Slam the over, guys. Slam it. Minus 40,000 on the over.
So my answer would be ballpark 250.
Okay.
probably. Mine are, pretty specific. The back-to-back World Series champion, Big Red Machine. Um, uh, Ideally, a graded rookie card of every player on the team. Right now, I've settled for a graded copy of every player on that team because everything's in the 70s or older. But working my way through that. But because it is two distinct teams, like the players that are on that obviously played both years, I have to have two copies of the card, or it doesn't work for me OCD wise. So I have three copies of Johnny Bench rookie cards. I have one that's really in the PC and two of them that are in my red sets. I'm working through the shout out Cajun Cardboard, his poster, the Jordan insert. Working my way through the tiers. I have some in the near top tier. I have a lot in the bottom tiers, but so I have those, and then Tiger Woods PC. That's very high. Peyton Manning PC. King Griffey Jr. Barry Larkin. Those are four players four athletes that outside of Jordan, that I really heavily PC. I'll pick up random like Joey Votto cards. I kind of PC Joey Votto too, but
Do you want to go over on the 250? I mean, you've already named like 9 or 10 people.
No,
yeah, but
they're all in a spreadsheet. It goes to 250 on the.
They are spreadsheet. They are spreadsheeted, but no, they're like. But I don't have all 5,000 copies of Joey Votto, Ken, like you do at Trinity Rodman. I've got like his first Bowman auto. And certain very specific cards. Now I will get there fast, trust me, because some of my PC cards are just random cards that eventually will show up at a showcase one day.
Yeah.
I'll drop two of them: Brock Purdy Gold Kaboom and Jordan Love Rookie Color Blast. Those are two that are just setting in the PC right now. That are just really for the day that I decide I want to sell them. So
that sounds like my Mahomes cards, my Mahomes rookie autos, that just sit there and. Just knowing that I have them.
Yeah. Like I tell Madison all the time, I'm like, if something happens and you had to sell something quickly, there's a few cards in there that will just go like instantaneously. They send one picture online and they're gone for whatever number you post them for.
Yep.
So
thank you for the question, Kyle.
That was great. From Jimmy Arquizo on IG, what's the biggest lesson you guys have learned since getting into sports cards? And since your name is Sports Cards Lessons, I think you should probably go first.
What is my biggest lesson?
Yeah.
I mean, I give lessons every week here, so I don't think any are bigger than the other ones.
That you've learned, not that you're giving. What's that you've learned?
Yeah. You know what? I'll tell you what, and I know this is going to sound silly, but I've learned that a lot of times, and I say this so many times on the podcast, that I have to say it's a hobby. It's supposed to be fun, right? And no matter what happens, what I do, I need to find the fun in what I'm doing in this hobby. And along with the fun, it's the people, right, who have made this hobby great for me, meeting all these people. And we talked about this a few episodes ago, Tyler coming, to a new state and meeting people. It was a way to, to somewhat fit in. Right. And, I guess the biggest lesson is, but the hobby, I mean, it's just not about the cards. Even though the hobby is about the cards, there's so much more to this hobby than the cards.
Yeah, I would echo that. I know he's probably wanting a little more definitive answer from lessons, like hard lessons, and I'll give two. One is when you have an opportunity to, if you're trying to sell a card for a profit and you have an opportunity to make a good profit, take it. Don't be greedy. It never works. There's an Anthony Richardson Gold Kaboom over there that will remind me of it. Ken tried to remind me of it earlier today. Forever, and I may own that card forever. And then the other one is just watch and learn. Like, sometimes stop doing this and that we're talking and just watch, because some of the best things that I do today are what I've seen other people do. And my approach to the hobby from just a collecting perspective to a which I the poster from Cajun Cardboard, right? I watch his show, I listen to it, his love for Jordan inserts, and that helped me kind of find a definitive path to collecting Jordan, which is something I wanted to do. And then from a business perspective, it's just watch how other people do it. And my approach to this from a business perspective is really just an collaboration of ideas that I saw other people do that I thought were really good. And that's what I tried to put together for my approach rather than try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, so thanks guys for leaving me an easy answer to try to figure out after those.
You pushed me first.
Yeah, I know I did. It's in your name. It'd be messed up not to. And then you just hit us with the wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi. That was brilliant. So for me, first off, what you guys both said, truthfully, I couldn't agree more. And then past that, I would say a big lesson, and it kind of goes hand in hand, is don't compare yourself to what other people are doing, because you don't know their situation and you don't know how long they've been doing this. And sometimes people, because a lot of this hobby, when I say don't compare, like it's really easy to go to a show and then see a showcase with multi-millions of dollars of cards in it and go, what am I even doing here? Right. But you have no idea how long it took to acquire or what funds people started with or not. So, keeping the course of your own situation and just constantly grinding to get to wherever you want to be, that doesn't have to mean like jumping into that level ever. It could just be making a good collection for yourself. But whatever you are trying to do, stay focused on you rather than looking outside and then maybe feeling less than. You never want to do that, because that's not what this is about. And furthermore, what I would say, and this is for me specifically, is I used to be someone who, and I know Ken probably remembers this, and it's been a big change within the last year, I would just like rummage through dollar boxes to grade cards I found in dollar boxes to create capital. And essentially now I'm at a place where I'm trying to tell myself, look, take that risk. The upside is there. Take that risk. So that's like a personal me lesson, but like trying to get to a place where you can comfortably like take bigger risks for bigger rewards, I think is good. Because I think what happens is with a lot of these people that have these collections, they're at a place from building it that they have the ability to stomach any blows or stomach any big break evens with having all the upside. So they can take those risks, but getting to that place, that's anyone's individual situation. So I hope I'm not rambling. I hope that makes sense. But
totally rambling. No, I'm just
awesome. Great. Next question. No, but no,
but it's Tyler's pointed to that. He said, look, I've got the gold kaboom over there on the shelf. We all have those cards on the shelf. I don't care who you are in this hobby. Those are just lesson learned, right? Mm-hmm. It's part of the coming of age in the hobby, right? Like just being in the hobby. I mean, it's going to happen to everybody. I don't care who you are. We all have a story of how we lost a ton on a card for whatever reason. We made a mistake, or we bought the card and a torn ACL, or a fresh charge and arrested and going to jail. I mean, just so many different things that could happen that you don't know. And I think kind of what you're saying too is just don't overextend yourself to the point that if that happens, it doesn't crush you. Yeah. Right. That you're able to learn from it and just move forward.
Absolutely.
And don't shy away from being able to admit that was a wrong decision and you missed. Right. Because, the more you try to pretend that doesn't happen, you'll just do it again.
Yeah.
Right.
So
absolutely.
Great question. Thank you for that question.
Sweet. From 7th Inning Stretch Rockaway on Instagram. Loving the hobby chop format. Well, thank you. Maybe for Ken directly or maybe not. What elements of a sports card show make it great for you as a vendor? Constant foot traffic, yes, but what details are important to you?
Well, yeah, obviously foot traffic, but more so is, people motivated to buy, people that are coming. And when I say that, we all know we could go to shows and there'd be a ton of foot traffic and people just aren't buying, a lot of tire kicking, a lot of people looking. But just having people that come in that, you know, one, I have intent to sell every card in my case and I'm pricing them accordingly. And I'm hoping people who are coming through the door are coming to buy cards that are priced accordingly. And we become a match made in heaven, right? I mean, that and not a 3-day show. Right? I love 1 days. I can do a 2-day, but I just can't do a 3-day show. The only 3+ days is the national for me. Any 3-day show now, unless I'm traveling, unless I'm going to Culture Collision in Atlanta or going to Burbank or something like that. If it's local, I can't do a 3-day show.
Yeah, I would agree on the local 3 days too much, but traveling, it's just part of it. I guess I'll approach the question not from the buying and selling aspect of it, just as from what makes a show great for a vendor, from a experience perspective. And the first thing I would point to is something like Culture Collision or that Dallas has is the venue is attached to the hotel.
Yep.
Like that is a huge plus.
Was that your first time doing that? We're in Atlanta like that with the
Yes, in Atlanta, yes. For me, right. Well, I mean Mohegan's that way, right? It's attached to it. But just that in general, that experience that you get with in the casino show or at those other places where you can go put your stuff down when you're done before going to trade night. You don't have to get in a car and do additional driving and additional packing up. That's huge. And then the other thing I would say is give me an organized promoter. Nothing is more painful than dealing with a promoter whose operation's a little disorganized. Ken and I had a little bit of a scare. I won't call that out, but we had a momentary scare. But just in general, like that is super important, and because it sets the tone for how the whole weekend or that show experience is going to be, because it allows you to get set up and be prepared for the traffic as it comes in. Just because set up and tear down can be crazy, and having that organized and well thought out is a very, very important thing.
And I think those are good. I'm not even going to speak on it.
I'll throw one thing in there, and this for my guy Brad, right? Because we've had this conversation before, and it's not from the age perspective, but it's really nice to be able to go to a show and they have nice bathrooms.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's nothing worse than these VFWs and these American Legions that the bathrooms are like a nightclub at 3 a.m, when you're walking into them and you're like, oh God, this is terrible. But yeah.
Alrighty. The next one is a good one. What's the most annoyed each of you have been at a buyer, and what caused the annoyance? I'll go first because I'm sure you guys have better ones than me, just setting up more and stuff. There's a guy online in my DMs. Not going to go into if we know him or don't know him or where he's located or anything like that, but I was selling a card that had many direct comps. Like many, there's no reason to look anywhere else. There were 5 within the last week, and proceeded to try to base it off of a lower grade that had sold a month prior, and was sure that that was the way to go. And I told him, for the kids listening, to buzz off. And that's it for me. But I just shut it down. So like, if someone's being, I think, unreasonable, I'll just shut it down and say, this isn't for you. But that's the most annoyed I've been. Truthfully, it's nice because I haven't been that annoyed. Not really a big thing. So.
Well, and so what was read the question to me again? I apologize, Jordan. I just,
no problem. What's the most annoyed each of you have been at a buyer, and what caused the annoyance? So for me, it was just disregarding relevant, sufficient data. That was
sorry, I just missed the at the buyer part of the question for some reason. When probably just not a lot of specific. I won't say a specific example, but the one that occurred in Causeway is pretty at the top of the list. Because nothing probably annoys me more than when I price something reasonably, like already at the right price that is a take it price, and I get you throwing out an offer to try to get a better deal. I probably would too, but when the answer is a very firm, this is the price. Don't come back for $5 the price. I've told you that this is the price, and I will say either there's room or this is firm, and that's not a lie. That's the real answer. I think Ken probably saw out of a little stack of dollar cards I had Sunday in Danbury. Like I told the person like $10 on like 18 cards that were probably comped to $35, and like, well, you do 8. And I just because I wanted to get rid of the cards, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Just give me $8. Like, but that that kind of stuff is probably at the top of the list. I'm not there to just have just to have an argument back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm here to give you the answer and move on.
For me, watching that could have been a comedy skit, but if I was in your shoes, I would have been just absolutely annoyed. Like that could have been like a SNL skit, because it was so. How many times did he offer? Like five times at least, right? Like, it was just like, no, my number's da 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 da. No, my number. It's just like, come on now, yeah.
I'm gonna honestly say I just use it for humor. You guys have been set up with me at shows, and if I've gotten annoyed or gotten unruly, please tell me, because I don't think I ever have. I think I think to myself, the worst the customer is being is like, cha-ching, I've got content for Sunday when I get home to make the podcast, right? So I let it all soak in, and I say, yeah, more. I mean, I've had people try to return cards to me after they bought them from me on Saturday, and then they put them in their case for 2 days and they didn't sell. And at the end of the day on Sunday, they came back and said they made a mistake and they wanted to sell the cards back to me or get full value to trade for something else when they realized nobody else in the room wanted to buy the cards, right? I mean, just it's like silly stuff like that people would just be. I mean, I just laugh at that stuff. I just really find it comical. I mean, this is a hobby. I'm here to have fun, and I'm not going to get my blood pressure up over any of this silly stuff. I'd rather just find humor in it and laugh and make a joke about it. And there are times when people get so upset with me, and I just come back at them with humor and just laugh or smile, just like I have no idea where this is coming from. And it diffuses the situation, and some people will calm down, and either that or they'll flip me off and walk away, and the people around me will think it's funny, right? Bob?
Yeah, I was there one time. And there was a specific Tom Brady card that hadn't sold for a while. Yeah.
And I did an episode. I did that as part of an episode.
You were great. And you laughed it off, and I was like, this guy's a psycho.
You want to know something? That guy shows up with his friend at every show since, and he won't stop. His friend stops at my table. He will not stop at my table. And I had a card in my case at a recent show of something that he PCs. And it took everything he had to come up to the table and stand with his friend like that. That's how upset that guy was about me from months ago. And I noticed him at shows, and he finally communicated with me. And it was over a card, and his friend kept asking him. He was negotiating for him, and he would turn around and he would whisper to him, and he would not talk to me. And then the guy finally turns to me. He goes, "How much do you want for that card?" And I told him. He goes, "Oh, that's a really good price." And I said, "Thank you." So, I mean, we could get over this stuff, right? I mean, people are funny, but probably from now on, when he shows up at a show, he'll come back and talk to me now.
Yeah. I applaud you. I don't have that patience.
Yeah.
I really don't. I give
But
you
it
credit.
comes with age too. It comes with
Yeah.
age. You're young, you got a wife, you got kids, you got bills, you got lots going on, lots of stressors in your life.
Oh, yeah.
When you get to be my age, things are really much better. You know, I don't have many stressors in my life, and if I do, I get rid of them quickly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yet you've held on to all of your Mac Jones.
With a smile.
Those are badges of honor.
Badges of fair enough. All right, we got from Cardboard Craig on IG. Let's talk women's NCAA bracket. Who you got?
Oh, you know
Not
what?
USC.
I tell
USC.
you what, I had USC beating Notre Dame in the championship, and all I have to say is I'm sitting on my couch last night watching that game, and she went down, and it looked just like the Cameron Brink injury last year.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. And I probably got 45 messages over the next 10 minutes. And I know people are not, well, I know I'm probably the only guy watching this game, but it must have been flashing up on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else. And people knew right away to come to me to say, man, I'm sorry to see that. I'm just happy she's a sophomore, right? She's got plenty of time to rebound and come back. But yeah, that was. But you know what? It leaves the door open for UConn now. UConn could get there, but they're going to be facing either Notre Dame or South Carolina on the other side, and I think either of those teams could win this tournament. So
yeah.
Even without Juju there, it's not going to be for me as exciting. And even UCLA, right, with Kiki Rice. So I mean, it's still going to be a great tournament. And if you picked any one of those teams, you're probably, right, except for USC. Now, I don't think they'll have enough firepower without Juju to go on. But yeah, I'm still looking forward to the tournament.
I'm going UConn, and I think the injury was a hex from Jaden Daniels' mom.
I agree. It was a hex from Jaden Daniels' mom. But UConn's the betting favorite now, surprisingly. I thought South Carolina would be, but UConn's the betting favorite.
Yeah, well.
But,
it's because UConn beat South Carolina, but I think it'll be a much different. I mean, we're here in Connecticut, kid. I'm rooting for UConn. I'm behind them 100%. I'm not going to miss a game. But I'm just being realistic too.
Yeah, my Indiana women tried very hard to knock South Carolina out. They just didn't have quite enough firepower. So they've got the bad luck of the draw the last 2 years with South Carolina. But
Craig, who did you have? Leave your comment below if you're watching on YouTube.
Let us know, Craig. And then we had two from Homer, but he popped in and answered. And then the last one is from Big Buck Trading Co. on Instagram. Big Buck. Our show's really busy. You're making me laugh. Our show's really busy, or are the rooms, venues just small halls?
Well, we just talked about these tables and these larger shows, and I'm telling you, the bigger the shows, the more people that show up. Like Dallas, 750 tables, Nashville, 750. They're bringing people in from all over. I mean, I have not been, and I've been to a Dallas show yet. I'm planning to go to Burbank in August, and probably between now and then or next September for the Dallas Card Show, I'm going to go to that show too. And I know these shows are heavily traveled. So it has nothing. I mean, these local shows like I said, the VFW, the American Legions, a gymnasium somewhere. I mean, they're even drawing a lot of people to come in. I mean, the New Britain show that, our local show, Plainville show, Enfield show, these are these are small venues, but just a ton of people. We've all been there by 9 o'clock, 9:30. You can't even move in those aisles, right? If that show was twice as big, it would still look busy. So
Big buck, pack your deodorant. It's getting sweaty. It's busy in there. Sardines in a can, wherever you're at. Hobby's alive. Hobby's alive. Yeah, it's busy wherever you are, So I think they're busy.
I would agree.
Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah, another great episode, fellas. Every week we think this was better than the last, and I think it is. I think they're just getting better.
Absolutely.
Hope so. Hopefully everybody's listening.
Yeah.
Thanks so too.
Yeah. So anything we talked about, any comments, please, if you're on YouTube, leave them below. If not, hit any of us up on Instagram or in the Facebook Hobby Chop podcast group. Anything else before we say goodbye?
I think that does it.
This week, Tyler, you were
in Quincy.
You're at Quincy, Mass. I am in North Carolina, going down to visit my daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter. So I will be it'll be a non-hobby weekend, although I always make it to Cardiac Cards right down the street to pick up some wax to rip with the granddaughters.
WNBA Select.
What Zip, what are you doing? You're golfing.
I'm golfing. In fact, I put a on my story if anyone wants to come, because all my friends my age are still looking, for girlfriends, and so I'm looking for a golf partner this weekend because that's where we're at.
Jordan's mad at us that we're doing other things other than playing golf.
Yeah.
Listen, Tyler, I know we got basketball games, we got card shows, we got stuff we got to do. I get it. I'm still waiting for my lesson because I'm not great at golf, but I have fun doing it. So yeah.
But yeah, if anybody's coming out to Northeast Card Expo in Quincy, stop by, say hello. Should be a great show. It's my first time setting up, so I'm looking really forward to it. I've done their other shows in different locations, and they run a good event. So
good.
Yeah, you'll be happy that it's a good show.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you next week.
See ya.